Hey everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be doing a competitive deck profile on Heroes. Heroes is probably my favorite archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's kind of what got me back into the game, and the competitive scene 2 years ago, so I hope you enjoy. So starting off with the main deck, our first card in the main deck is 3 Elemental Hero Stratos. This card is extremely good. I shouldn't be saying most people. Some people run this card at 1 or 2, but personally, I think this card should be ran at 3, or as mandatory at 3. People don't use Stratos for its first effect. Half the time they use it for the majority of its second effect. So when Stratos is normal summon or special summon, you get to search a hero card. And the hero card you'll be usually searching is the card that you need at the time. Usually it's Ferris, because Ferris is a really good card. It's a +1. Because if it's special summon, you discard a card, you special summon Ferris, and then you get increase. And the important thing about Stratos is that it is not once per turn, so it's really good. Like if let's say you have Monster Reborn and stuff like that, you just be plussing off of Stratos. Again, it's really good. I think it should be run at 3, and yeah, so. So the next card that we use in our main deck is called Destiny Hero Malicious, and you would run 3 of these cards. This card is really good as an extender, but it does feel bad if you have 2 of these in your hand or you have no way to get it out of your hand. It feels bad in that situation, but this card, I think the pros outweigh the cons, because as an extender, this card is just amazing. It's just another body on the board, it gets you into your Link 2 plays, and it keeps extending you to like Link climb to Link 3 and use it as mass chain target to get into Darklaw and Dystopia and stuff like that. It's just really, really good. Like, you have to run this card at 3. Again, feels bad if you draw this card or you have no way to get out of your hand, but once you get into the graveyard, it's just really, really good. So for the next cards in our main deck will be the Vision Hero package. So you'll be running 3 Ferris, 2 Vision Hero Increase, and 2 Vision Hero Vion. I personally think this is the correct ratio in terms of increase. So with increase, you don't want to run of it, because if you run one of it, it gives you the risk of drawing it, and then it just feels bad because you're like, ah, dang, I need another increase to extend my plays off of Ferris. I guess for Vision Hero or Vion, this kind of depends on your personal preference. I think 2 is okay. Vision Hero's Vion's effect is pretty good, so it has 2 effects. If it's special summon, then you get to dump a hero card from your deck to your graveyard, and then you can banish this card from the graveyard to grab a Polymerization. Again, it's an okay card. I don't think I want to see it in my opening hand. Vision Hero Ferris is, I think, like, this card has to be run at 3. This card is really good because this kind of unclogs your hand. This gets you 2 monsters on the field to get into your Link 2 plays, and then you just go off with this card. This card is the card that you want to search off of Stratos, or you just want to have this card in your hand. This card is really good. So in competitive play, you'll be playing 3 rounds, and you can be either going first or second. You're not going to always go first, and you're not always going to go second. So you want to make your main deck suitable to be going first or second. So Evil Hero Adjusted Gold is a really good going second card, but it's a really bad going first card. So what Evil Hero Adjusted Gold does is that you get to discard it, search the Dark Calling, and then use Dark Calling to make Evil Hero Malicious Bane. And what Evil Hero Malicious Bane does is that it's a Regeki. It destroys all your opponent's monsters on their side of the field. If you have a big enough bank account, by all means you can run this card out more than 1. But for me, this card is mandatory at 1 in competitive play. It's okay at 2 or 3, again, it's up to you. These cards and these ratios are up to personal preference. The next card is Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. This card's alright. Again, I don't see any purpose in running this more than 2 or 3. I mean, if you find a purpose, by all means go for it, but I think this card is good at 1. So what Liquid Soldier does is that if it's used as a fusion material, then you get to draw 2 cards. It's pretty good, like, so if you get Imbue and stuff like that, the 2 cards can help save you, and like those 2 cards can help extend your plays and stuff like that. This card is really good against water decks or decks that can't be destroyed or targeted. So for example, Pillar Frogs, if they have 2 dupe frogs, or they have 1 frog that can't be targeted, if like they can put you in a lock or something like that. So what this card can do is that you can use this fusion summon to absolute 0, mass change it into acid, And then what Absolute Zero does is that if it leaves the field, then it wipes out your opponent's monsters. So again, it's kind of like a mini Malicious Bane. It's alright. It's pretty good. The next card is Elemental Hero Honest Neos. Elemental Hero Honest Neos is kind of how you get over the big cards, like the 3k beaters and stuff like that, like Ultimate Conductor Triano and stuff like that. So if you attack an or use CT and stuff like that, or the 3k beaters, you can just use Honest, and then basically it just allows you to swing over them. Again, you don't really want to hard draw this card. Like if you need it, you'll search for it, but it's an okay card. Next card is Elemental Hero Solid Soldier. This card is, again, you can run this at 2 or 3. For this, I think this is the exception in terms of Garnet. Like, I see its applications for running more than one. So what Solid Soldier does is that it allows you to special summon a level 4 or lower hero card from your hand. Again, it's like for the purpose of this deck, you want to try to get 2 cards on the field and then just link climb and then get into your link plays and stuff like that. That's kind of what the purpose of a hero deck is. And then once you can have those extra cards, you can mass change them or make them into the fusion monsters and stuff like that. So Solid Soldier, pretty good, I guess. So for the next 3 cards, Destiny Hero Plasma, Celestial, and Dynatag, you kind of use these for just the name of the Destiny Hero because of Destiny Fusion. So Plasma is one of your boss monsters of this deck per se. So going first, this card is pretty good. Like if you don't know what your opponent's playing, then you just summon Plasma, and it's kind of like a Dark Ruler no more. Celestial is basically a Liquid Soldier, but for the following turn. So when this card is sent to the graveyard, the next turn you can banish this card, and then you get to draw 2 cards. And Dynatag is basically a card that just burns. So you need these cards for Destiny Fusion. Dynatag may be an exception, like most people can cut this out or whatever, or most people do cut this out. But you just use these for the Destiny Hero, or just the name of the Destiny Hero. I mean, like, there are other Destiny Hero monsters that you can use, but these cards are probably better than them, or whatever. And then the last card is Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. This card is okay, like, it's alright. This is, like, so when it's special summon, or this has 2 effects. So when it's special summon, you get to search a change card, so usually you search mass change or whatever. And then its second effect, you kind of use this card for its first effect, but its second effect is basically where if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 hero monster from your deck to your hand. So it's kind of like a Stratos when it goes to the graveyard, but it's, again, you can run this card at 1 or 2. So yeah, that's it for the monsters, or the monsters in the main deck. So for the next part of the deck profile, I'll be showcasing you the spell cards and the ratios that I run in this deck. The ratios you can kind of see on the screen right now. So first I'll be explaining what Emergency Call kind of does for the deck. So in competitive play, you want to try to bait out hand traps and bait out disruption. Going first, you'll be usually trying to bait out the hand traps, and then going second, you want to be baiting out the disruption. So Emergency Call is a good example of this. So some people run this card at 1 or 2, but I think you have to play this card at 3. Because, for example, if they Ash Blossom an important key part in your combo, then it just feels awful. Like, you don't want them to Ash Blossom, like, certain cards, like Fusion Destiny and stuff like that. Like, you want them to Ash Blossom, like cards that you can kind of play through. So that's, so Emergency Call is a card that you can be used to bait out these certain cards in certain scenarios. So that's why I think this card should be run at 3, not at 2 or not at 1. But yeah, it's the main purpose of this card is kind of bait out cards and stuff like that, or bait out hand traps and bait disruption and stuff like that. The next card I also see that some people play at 1 or 2 is Mass Change. Mass Change is a really good card. Like, this card going first is how you get to Dark Law and get into your masked heroes and stuff like that. Like, this card is really problematic. And even though it's searchable, like, I understand it's searchable, but you want to kind of see this card at 1 or 2 in your opening hand, because you can just, like, set 2 Dark Claws and pass or something like that. The next card is a Hero Lives. Again, the concept of this card is, like, to bait out stuff. Like, yes, you do lose 4,000, but the pros kind of outweigh the cons in that scenarios, because a Hero Lives, you bait out Disruption, okay, whatever. You lose 4,000, okay. But if you bait out the Ash Blossom, then you can just go off, make this big board, and then if you make this big board, there's probably no way for them to break it. unless if their hand is just disgusting, like absolutely disgusting. But again, 4,000 is not really much of like a con if you can make or set up your big board with disruptions and stuff like that. Polymerization, I run this card at 1. And I think most people run this card at 1 because you don't want to see this card at 2, like in your opening hand at 2, because like you need extenders and you need starters. Like polymerization is just a plus more card per se, and like it's searchable. So off of Vion, so it's again you kind of want to have this card at 1 or 2, or sorry at 1, not at 2 or 3. Fusion Destiny, for some reason people play this at 2. I think this is mandatory at 3. This card is used as an extender, and this card is used as a starter. Like, it's a 1-card starter, so why wouldn't you play this card, right? So you can use your other 4 cards as baits or whatever to bait out the disruption and hand trap. But if you have a 1-card starter that can make your full board, like, you should be running that card at 3. So the next card is 2 Called by the Graves. For personal preference, I think this card should be run at 2. Like, other people can play this at 3 or whatever. The reason I play this as at 2 is kind of the concept of I run 2 Pot of Desires. You don't want a Pot of Desires and then draw into another Pot of Desires. That's why some people play it at 2 instead of 3. It gives you a less chance of drawing it. It's kind of statistical and mathematical based off that. But for Call by the Grave, if you have it, you have it. Like, okay, like you can hand trap their hand trap or whatever. Okay, that's fine. Like if they have the draw and lock board, they just have it, right? But if you draw like multiples of this card, it feels kind of bad, and then you run into problems like, oh shoot, do I have enough gas to play through their stuff, or do I have enough gas to make the big board and stuff like that? Because in the end, if you have 2 Called by the Graves, like you probably use 1 and the other one will be used as a trap card on your opponent's side or on your opponent's turn. So again, that's why I kind of run the card at 2. You can run this at 1, you can run this at 3. Again, this one is kind of personal preference. Reinforcement of the Army, like, this is basically a better e-call. There's no restriction on it. It has to be an elemental hero. This can be any level 4 warrior monster. Really good card. Like, you should be running this card. Monster Reborn, I think this card is really good because there's some applications with Destiny or Malicious and other cards like Reoccurred from the Graveyard. Like, it can push through some disruptions and stuff like that. I think it's good. Dark Calling and Miracle Fusion. Miracle Fusion's at 1 because it's on the Forbidden and Limited list. This is basically a polymerization that you use monsters in your graveyard. I think it's okay. It's a good card. Dark Calling, this is the card that you search off by discarding Evil Hero Adjusted Gold to get your Malicious Bane. I would not run this more than 1. Like, this is kind of like the Garnet scenario. If you draw multiples of it, then it just feels bad, I guess. And if you want to try to limit your chances of drawing the Garnets, so that's why I just put this at 1. And yeah, so that's it for the spell cards. I don't really run traps in this deck because in this meta, traps are kind of too slow. And I kind of guess I learned this concept from Gabriel Vargas. For a combo deck, you just want to combo off, right? Like, if you have disruption, that's fine, it's whatever, but you want to see as many extenders and as many starters as possible. Because if you have too many disruptions in your hand, like hand traps or like trap cards and stuff like that, it just clogs your hand, and then you kind of have to like hope that you have the 1 or 2 card starters. So that's why I don't really run any trap cards, because it's too slow. And yeah, so that's it for the spell cards. And that's the 40 cards in the main deck. Okay, so for the last portion of this deck profile, I'll be showcasing you the extra deck. So I won't go too much in depth into these cards. I'll be giving you just a general scenario in which you use these cards. So for example, Extra Hero Cross Crusade, this is usually the card that you kind of go into most of the time because you end up with having 2 Destiny heroes or 2 Dark Monsters and stuff like that. And this is the card that you kind of go into, or you have to go into when you want to get into Dread Decimator from Fusion Destiny, because Fusion Destiny locks you into Dark Monsters. So that's why you want to run the 2 Extra Hero Cross Crusade. It's a link to, it's really good. Like, so for example, the play would be Fusion Destiny into Dystopia, and then once you have Dystopia, you link climb it into Cross Crusade, use Cross Crusade's effect, and then special summon Dystopia. So that way the Dystopia doesn't get destroyed at the end of the turn. So that's how like the play kind of unfolds. The next card is Extra Hero Wonder Driver. So you use this card when you have two monsters and you're not locked into darks, because the reason, like you can see from this extra deck, there's no other monsters besides hero monsters, because there's like a lot of restrictions in this hero deck where you're locked into like heroes, or for Fusion Destiny you're locked into dark and heroes. So that's why you can't really that's why this extra deck is kind of tight and can't really be running any other cards. So for Wonder Driver, if something is special summoned under it, then you get to grab a Mass Change Polymerization or like a fusion card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's pretty good in terms of like making your other fusion plays or having another fusion monster to make these certain plays and stuff like that. So Dread Decimator is kind of like the boss monster, I guess. Like it's a big beat stick that you special summon. It's just a Link 3 that you summon off of, and then all the monsters under it. Like this allows you to, like this monster gets you to more zones, so you can go into like 4 monsters potentially, or 4 extra deck monsters potentially, and then it just gives you like, it boosts their attack, because for each different hero monsters in your graveyard, each monster like it points to gets 100 extra. So I guess it's like pretty good, I guess. The next card is probably like the best card in the deck. It's Evil Hero Malicious Bane. So this is the card that you get off of Evil Hero Adjusted Gold. So if you're not running Evil Hero Adjusted Gold because you don't have the money or the bank for it, then you don't run Malicious Bane. But in competitive play, Malicious Bane is really good, because this card is a Regeki and it wipes out your opponent's board. Like, it's really good. Like, I think it's really worth its price tag. So the next card is Elemental Hero Sunrise. This card's like, it's alright. It's just another fusion monster you can kind of fusion summon into off of, let's say like Liquid Soldier or Solid Soldier or stuff like that. It basically searches off of Miracle Fusion. It's like Miracle Fusion's pretty good. Like, so you end up like with Dread Decimator, Sunrise, and different fusion monsters like Masked Hero, Dark Law, and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the end board that you want to see. So when you go first, the next card is Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. This card is really, really good in terms of facing Paleo or Water decks, because this is how you kind of wipe their board with Liquid Soldier. You search the Liquid Soldier, and then you can probably use Super Poly or use any like Polymerization or Miracle Fusion to make this, and then you mass change it into Acid, and then once the Absolute Zero leaves the field, it just wipes out your opponent's board or your monsters. So this card kind of destroys untargetable boards per se. The next card is Destiny Hero Dangerous. Like, you just run this card because sometimes you're left with conditions to, like, it's the only condition that you can run into, like 2 Destiny Hero monsters. That's like an okay card. It's kind of a disruption-ish. It's a pop. Again, you kind of just run it because of the materials that you're kind of left with sometimes. The next card is your OTK card. This is called Vision Hero Trinity. This is usually the card that gets up to 6,000 or to 8,000 and it just destroys your, like finishes off your opponent. The next card is Destiny Hero Dystopia. This card is usually the card that you special summon off of Fusion Destiny, and it's really good because it has a burn effect with Dynatag. So the next few cards are the Masked Heroes. These are the cards that you use Mass Change on. So for example, Masked Hero Blast, this is the one that you use Masked Hero from Stratos. Again, sometimes like you're left with unlucky hands. For example, you have the Stratos and you have Mass Change, and then all the other cards are like just bricks, and you're like, oh, damn. Well, I guess this is the only play, so like Stratos into Mass Change or whatever. So again, you kind of run the Mass Change just for the targets and stuff like that. Usually, the next 2 cards like Masked Hero Dark Law, this card is probably the card that you can summon most of the time, because most of the cards in the main deck are just dark monsters, and its effect is like just really good. Like, so for example, you summon a Dark Law, your opponent's, every time it's supposed to be sent to the graveyard, it actually sends to the Banish Zone, which is really good. So Massacre Acid, again, you kind of just run this because of Absolute Zero. You just mass change Absolute Zero into Acid, and you get Absolute Zero's effect. Because like, yeah, that's basically it. You just want to get Absolute Zero off the field just to wipe out your opponent's board. And Acid's effect is like, okay, it just destroys and spell and trap cards. I guess that's pretty good, actually. Who am I kidding? And then the last card is Massacre Anki. This card is like, okay. I haven't really summoned this in play yet, but it's just, again, it's a target if you have nothing to go to. Like if you run out of Dark Laws or whatever, like Anki is a pretty good card, or it's like an extender or whatnot. So yeah, that's the deck profile. I didn't really talk or go into the side deck too much because again, that kind of goes more towards the meta that's being played. So for example, like your side deck is supposed to be used for how the meta is like shaped. So for example, this meta right now is like a lot of spirals, a lot of invoke Shaddolls and stuff like that. So you want to side out cards or side in cards that are capable of dealing those. And like your side deck is supposed to be quote unquote used for siding towards your hardest matchups. So like this deck kind of loses to a lot of normal summons and whatever, or like anti-spell fragments, because a lot of your, as you can see, like half the deck is monsters and half the deck is spells. So you want to use spell trap removal and stuff like that. So again, your side deck is important in competitive play towards the meta. Like you shouldn't really have like a set staple or set cards. Just siding cards are beneficial towards matchups and stuff like that, or who you think you're going to be playing towards. And I guess it's important to know like your locals if you go to locals, or like your region, like know, like if you're going to regionals, know what your regionals play most of the time, like True Dracos or whatever. Like you want to side in cards like for matchups that you think you're predominantly going to face, or matchups that are probably the hardest for you. So yeah, that's the deck profile. I hope you enjoy, and I guess I hope you learned something. Anyways, peace.